The truth is often spoken in whispers, but sometimes, a single voice can echo across an entire industry. You need to hear why Bai Lu's untranslated speech is sending shockwaves through the C-drama community and what it means for the ongoing fight for justice in the Yu Menglong saga. This isn't just about a speech, it's about a movement. The auditorium was filled with the soft hum of anticipation that night. Flashing cameras, restless fans, and hushed murmurs filled the air as Bai Lu stepped onto the stage. Her eyes were calm, her posture composed, yet there was something in her silence that made the entire crowd lean forward, waiting. She wasn't there to promote a new drama or accept another award. She was there to say something that had been buried too long, something that, once spoken, would change everything. The lights dimmed slightly as she adjusted the microphone. The translator, who stood beside her, smiled nervously, waiting for her to begin. But Bai Lu didn't start in the expected way. She didn't thank the organizers or the producers. Instead, she began speaking softly in her native tongue, words that carried a tremor beneath their calm rhythm. The translator hesitated, pen poised, eyes wide. The words weren't on the script. Fans who didn't understand the language heard only the melody of her voice, but those who did knew immediately that something was different. There was conviction. There was fire. There was truth. She spoke of silence and fear. She spoke of being told to smile when her heart was breaking, of staying quiet when she saw injustice, of pretending everything was fine while others suffered behind the glamour. The translator glanced helplessly toward the event organizers, unsure whether to continue. Then, without warning, Bai Lu stopped speaking and turned directly toward the cameras. Every movement was deliberate. Every glance was sharp. The crowd felt it, something was happening that wasn't supposed to. She said one line that would later flood every corner of the internet. One line that was never officially translated, but fans who understood her language repeated it again and again online until it became a chant. They can silence a person, but not a truth that has already begun to burn. Then she stepped away from the podium. No explanation. No apology. Just silence. The translator stood frozen, unsure what to do. The audience didn't clap. They couldn't. They were too stunned to move. Within hours, clips of the speech spread like wildfire. The untranslated version appeared first, raw and unedited. Millions watched, rewatched, and tried to interpret what Bai Lu meant. Then, subtitles started appearing from fans who claimed to know what she really said. Each translation was slightly different, but they all carried the same haunting message, that Bai Lu had just called out something buried deep within the entertainment world, something people whispered about but never dared to confirm. At first, the official media tried to downplay it, labeling it as a moment of emotion or a personal reflection. But social media had already turned it into something much larger. Hashtags exploded. Fans demanded an official translation. Others said the speech was connected to Yu Menglong's sudden disappearance from public view weeks earlier. By morning, the entire industry was on edge. Agencies scrambled to issue statements, but none of them sounded convincing. Reporters began digging into old interviews, past conflicts, and leaked production notes. Everything pointed to a pattern, one that Bai Lu's words had just shattered open. Meanwhile, behind closed doors, Bai Lu sat alone in her apartment, staring at her phone as thousands of messages poured in. Some called her a hero. Some called her reckless. But she didn't respond to any of them. Her expression was unreadable. The faint sound of rain tapped against the window, and in that quiet, she replayed her own words over and over. Was it worth it, she wondered. Was speaking out worth the cost? Then came the letter. It arrived the next morning, slid under her door with no name, no address, only a folded note inside. The handwriting was familiar. Too familiar. I watched your speech, it read. You said what none of us could. But be careful. They're already rewriting your words. She froze. Her hands trembled slightly as she turned the page. A small photo was attached, an image of her standing on that same stage, but the caption beneath it was different. It was the edited translation now circulating online, twisted to sound harmless. The truth was already being erased. By noon, the official event page had replaced the original footage with a corrected version. The moment she turned toward the camera was gone. The line about silencing the truth had vanished completely. But fans had copies. They had evidence. And they refused to let it disappear. People began to gather outside her agency, holding signs that read, "We heard her and translate the truth." Journalists who once ignored rumors now begged for interviews. The movement that began as a single speech had grown into something much bigger. Days later, Bai Lu released a short statement online, not through her agency, not through the media, but directly to her fans. It was written entirely in her own language, again untranslated. She ended it with one chilling line. "If they erase my voice, remember what you heard." The internet erupted once again. No one knew exactly what she meant, but everyone understood the weight of it. Her courage had turned into something unstoppable. And then, something unexpected happened. A week after the controversy, Yu Menglong's name began trending again. A new video surfaced, a behind-the-scenes recording of an old interview, where he spoke about someone he admired deeply for her courage and honesty. He never said her name, but fans instantly recognized who he was referring to. It was Bai Lu. In that moment, it all came together. The unfinished story, the silence, the speech. It wasn't just about one person. It was about an entire system. As the movement grew, people from within the industry began to speak out too. Small voices at first, then louder, until the message was undeniable. Bai Lu's speech had cracked something open. She didn't just call for justice. She reminded everyone that truth, no matter how carefully hidden, always finds a way to be heard. The auditorium where it all began now stands as a quiet monument in fan discussions, a symbol of courage against control. Her words, still untranslated officially, remain a mystery to many, but to those who understood them, they became a promise. A promise that no matter how strong silence may seem, it can never bury truth forever. And now, the question remains, what will happen next? Because the moment Bai Lu's voice echoed across that hall, justice stopped being an idea. It became a call. A call that the world could no longer ignore. The uproar didn't die down. It grew, spreading faster than any press statement could contain. Every hour that passed made the mystery deeper, the silence heavier, and Bai Lu's name louder than ever. The untranslated version of her speech was being dissected by fans around the world. Some called it a cry for justice. Others believed it was a message meant for someone specific, someone who had disappeared when the truth began to surface. But while the internet burned with speculation, Bai Lu stayed silent. Not a single interview. Not a single post. Just quiet, deliberate absence. Inside her apartment, the world outside looked hazy through the rain-streaked windows. The city lights shimmered, but she barely noticed. Her phone had been vibrating for hours, calls from producers, agents, journalists, even old friends, but she couldn't bring herself to answer. Every word she had said on that stage still echoed in her mind, the untranslated line haunting her like a promise she wasn't sure she could keep. Then, a soft knock came at her door. She hesitated before opening it. And there he was, Yu Menglong, standing in the hallway, drenched from the rain, eyes burning with something between pain and admiration. It had been months since anyone had seen him. Rumors said he had left the industry, vanished completely. But now, here he was, holding something small and silver in his hand, a recorder. He looked at her quietly before speaking. "I kept this," he said. "The last thing you said before the mic went off." Bai Lu's heart skipped. "You recorded it?" He nodded slowly. "They cut the feed the moment you turned toward the cameras. But I was backstage. I heard it all. And I knew they'd erase it." For a long moment, they just stood there, the air thick with everything unsaid. Then he pressed play. Her voice filled the room, soft, trembling, but full of power. They can silence a person, but not a truth that has already begun to burn. It was the missing piece. The sentence no one had officially translated. The one that had turned her speech into a mystery. When the recording ended, the room was silent again. Yu Menglong looked at her, his voice breaking slightly. You said what we all wanted to say. What they never let us. Bai Lu turned away, her eyes glistening. And now they'll come for me. They already are, he replied. That's why I came. She turned back, startled. Why? Because they can't bury both of us if we stand together, he said. They can erase our work, our interviews, even our names. But if we speak again, together, the truth will survive. Bai Lu looked at him for a long time, her emotions tangled between fear and courage. Do you really think anyone will listen? He smiled faintly. They already are. Outside, the wind howled through the narrow streets. It was almost midnight when they sat down together to record one final message, uncut, unfiltered, and unrehearsed. They spoke not as celebrities, not as idols, but as people who had seen too much silence destroy too many lives. Bai Lu spoke first, her tone calm but heavy with conviction. The truth isn't a performance. It's not something you edit. It's something you live with. And when it's taken from you, the only thing left to do is take it back. Yu Menglong added quietly, if my voice disappears tomorrow, remember this one. Because the silence they build is only as strong as our fear. The message was uploaded at dawn. No captions. No translation. Just the raw clip of their voices. Within minutes, the internet went into chaos again. People translated it in over 20 languages. Hashtags began trending across the world. Hashtag Bai Lu Justice. Hashtag Yu Menglong returns. Hashtag the speech they erased. The video reached millions overnight. Fans cried. Critics demanded answers. Industry insiders panicked. And for the first time in years, the truth was louder than the silence that tried to bury it. By evening, networks started broadcasting the uncut footage of Bai Lu's original speech. The full translation was finally revealed, showing that she had been calling for accountability, fairness, and truth, not just for herself, but for every actor, every worker, every voice that had been dismissed or silenced. She didn't mention names, but everyone knew. The Yu Menglong controversy had been the spark that lit her fire. The pain she witnessed had become the foundation of her courage. Days later, Bai Lu appeared again, not in a drama, not on a red carpet, but in a quiet live broadcast with Yu Menglong sitting beside her. No glamour. No lights. Just honesty. She looked into the camera and said, if the truth costs me everything, then I'll pay the price. Because no story is worth telling if it's built on silence. Her words spread across the world. They became headlines, quotes, and rally cries. People who had been afraid to speak began sharing their own stories. What started as a single speech became a wave of voices. The entertainment world shifted. And Bai Lu, the woman whose voice they tried to erase, became the symbol of truth itself. Years later, when people looked back on that night, they didn't remember the rumors or the fear. They remembered the silence that ended with one voice refusing to stay quiet. Bai Lu didn't just give a speech. She started a revolution. Her words still echo in the hearts of those who heard them, a reminder that courage doesn't always come from shouting, but from speaking when everyone else chooses silence. And though her speech was once untranslated, now, it speaks to the world in every language possible. They erased her words once, but the truth refused to die. Watch till the end to hear the message that Bai Lu and Yu Menglong risked everything to share, and decide for yourself, was this just a speech, or the beginning of something unstoppable?